No, it's not off. I don't have to. So we're going to talk to Jim about that. I appreciate that. If you're going to get a low, it's going to get you that zero. Right. So. Market rate.
There's a lot of
Here's Vernon. Here's Vernon.
they don't get
I would.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, right. Between this and the store, maybe. I know I'm kind of like wondering if I should see what I can do tonight. But I feel I worry that it's probably too late. I know. I was every time I was like going up around they're all waiting at me. I know. We should have gone ahead of the other one. She So they're just.
So it's so yeah, I know. Non-load coverage. Oh, yes. The BIO goals?
We have to get it from two separate. We have to do, yeah, so I'll pick it up from one. Okay.
Hola, cámara. Muy buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everyone. If you want to be in the panel entitled Equity and Inclusion in Affordable Housing Community Engagement, Lessons from the Field, you're in the right place. If you don't want to be in that, you should leave because you're in the wrong place. Welcome. My name is Nathan Teskey. I'm the Executive Director of Bienestar. We have Meg Guerra, Director of FHDC, and Dan Valier, Director of REACH CDC. When we sent in the proposal for this panel, the three proposed panelists were Meg, Alma Flores, and Erica Calderon. Dan and I are pinch hitting. We've had late substitutions, and we're sorry about that, but we'll do our best. Welcome, everyone. We want to have an engaging dialogue with you all. Meg is the most prepared of the three of us and actually has a PowerPoint, so she'll do a PowerPoint. Dan will then make some points, and I have a few points to share from Bienestar, and then we hope to have questions and dialogue with you about this topic. So, and I understand all questions, we want them to go through the mic. So when we get to that point, just the people on Zoom need to hear it through the mic. So be mindful of that. So with that, everyone, here is Meg Guerra.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome. Is that a good sound? Not too loud, not too low. Yeah, this is what I got. We were supposed to be 3 women in here, but it's, you know, leaving everything in all jokes behind. I have worked with with both of them. And if I can choose, you know, males to work with, it will be them. Because they listen. They don't never put me down. They practice equity. They don't talk equity. Huge difference. And when they practice equity, they do it from the financial point of sharing financial income and income, which is big for small organizations like and middle organizations like Bienestar and FHDC. So even though Erica and Alma are not here, couldn't choose better person to be with me. Thank you guys for being here. I'm very honored to be in this panel. I really thank you, all of you, for being here because it's Thursday, almost Friday. If I was in my country, I'm from Ecuador, and Thursday, you know, is a small Friday. So how many in this room are aware of the situation in Iran and the situation with Mahsa Amini? 1 boy, 2. Okay, 3. Thank you. While I was talking about equity, that her picture came to my mind. And I don't think we can talk about equity until us as a females put ourselves first. And that's what I'm gonna ask you, all of you, all the time. Think about your daughters, your sisters, your mothers, and think what is going on, not just in Iran, let's be honest, it's everywhere. Just, I would like to ask for everybody just to rise up and just give me a minute to go through this process of honoring her today. Please raise up, just for a minute with me. Thank you. Thank you. This is not politics, by the way. It's human rights. With that, I would like to start my presentation. Do we have a click thing? No. Who is? Oh, next slide. Thank you. Next. Oh, thank you. No, the one previous one. Sorry, I just can see from here. So just a brief Introduction of FHDC. We are in rural areas of the Willamette Valley. We were founded in 1990, and we were the result of a strong grassroots people working in that area. Teachers, LGBT community was the first community that joined forces with FHDC to fight for the rights of the farm worker community in that area. Kudos to them. We work in our community and our services is more than anything directed to farm workers, but we have also senior and low-income communities at workforce housing now. So community engagement, and I'm not gonna even mention equity because we live equity. For me, that is kind of like a new word that people is using, like marketing. You know, it's like, oh, throw equity in there and let's see if we sell more. I don't really need to do that because every time that we work and everything that we do, from the beginnings of applying for a site to daily operations and resident service, we do it through those lenses. So, but what is community engagement for FHDC? The central idea behind community engagement is not public relationship. It's not what I was doing with you a few minutes ago, just checking hands, introducing myself. It's a good start and can be, I don't deny that, but it's not really what we are looking for. We are looking for a relationship, a closer relationship where we can tell our communities that we are going on, this is for you. This is yours. It's not ours. We are a partner to you to give you what you need and what you deserve. And we have used this model and thinking, like I say, for many years since our creation. We are definitely a grassroots organization. We understand, again, that affordable housing is not something that you own, that an organization owns. It's an idea for the community and to elevate their life, the lifestyles. Next one, please. So one important point in here is that we should see the community not as a problem, but a partner and a part of the solution to their needs. If we see community engagement through this lens, immediately the situation change. So we create real connections. It's not about gathering people and throwing some surveys in there. It's really a two-way conversation about, active listening. When I hear, what is that you need? And what you need might be, a playground that is close to the laundry rooms. And the laundry rooms has a big, huge window so you can watch your kids while playing and you are doing laundry. It might be a mural that represents your community. And more than that, it might be a mural that will allow your kids to have access to the only art that they might have had in their entire life. So there is a lot of things that we can do to create real connections. One thing that we do a lot is showing our commitment. Are we there for the community? And I was having this conversation just yesterday. Are we working for our governments? Are we working for our cities? Are we working for our own career? Or are we working for our communities? We are clear. We are there because they exist. If they wouldn't exist, my career is nothing. And my political life will be zero. I don't have one, by the way. And systems, well, we all are talking about systems. We talk about how bad they are. We want to change systems, but systems are very difficult to change. We need to be ready to change those systems. So in talking about how we work in community, we we define two aspects, transparency that I just talked about, and the other one is trust. How do I create trust? I got the site. Oregon Housing Community Survey gave me the money. I have the investor, I have the construction. I don't have the community yet, unless I practice community engagement for real. Knocking on doors, maybe is an option. I have done it. And all the neighborhood that I have going out personally and knock on doors and say, what are you scared of? Telling you the truth, our own name, Farm Worker Housing Development Corporation, scares people. They say, they look at farm worker and say, oh my God, those people are coming here. What are they gonna do? I take the time to walk the community. I don't go just to the mayor. I don't go just to the council. I go to the communities and I shake hands like I did a few minutes ago. I take more time though. I shake hands and I say, what are you scared of us coming here? That was not possible though during the pandemic. I have to be honest. It was extremely difficult. And I wouldn't say that we fail. We are getting into this new community called Lebanon and Oregon. A white community. They say farm worker housing and they say, oh no, we don't want you here. And we are still getting phone calls, threats that say, we are here ready for the fight. And I'm scared. I am scared for my staff. I don't want my staff to be dealing with, who knows what. So we build trust. We work with people in the community, social services, people that has been there for years, longer than us. We use the general practice. We go to the city council. We for the first time, I have to hire a land use attorney because there were a lot of, no, not on my backyard. But slowly, we are showing that they can trust us, that we are there not to do harm, but to help, to welcome people of color. I'm gonna use that word. Not many people like that. People of color in a white community. We are there to help them to be part of a bigger community. Trust means building authentic engagement. Active listening, that's true. I love this, vulnerability. That's huge. We are always told, you need to look strong. You need to look, you need to dress this way and this way to fit in. Well, I just can't fit in. I have an accent to begin with. Can't fit in. So I show myself as I am. And that, believe me, has helped me a lot. Next one. So we use a collaborative approach. We don't, like I was saying, we don't go alone. We don't do all this work alone. We engage with different social service organizations. Right now, we have 15 MOUs signed with different organizations to provide service to our communities. And many of you do that, I'm sure, I hope. ESL classes, citizenship classes, after school programs. We cannot do it all. Resident service, by the way, is not, I'm looking at Oregon Housing Community Service right now. It is not an expense above the line in some cases to cover everything that we need to provide, especially to the immigrant and community. So we need to look for ways to do that. Next one, please. So, for those that, as me, went to college and learned all these ways to do community engagement, we have design thinking and resident-centered design. When I walking into FHDC, I was using the first one. Data, I have my data, I have my numbers, I have everything that, I have the problem because, but I did all for distance. I thought that the problem that I have was the problem that my community had. Well, I might be able to identify some problems, but I'm not really immersed in the community. So this is great. We use it, and we should use it because it's a good start, but we can't stop there. We should go into resident center design. And what is resident center design? Can we go to the next slide, please? It's easy. Well, more easy say to do. You know, it's basically you get into the room with them and you start asking what is that you need. Now, like I say, it's easy, not that easy. Because you're gonna have, for me at least, in our experience, there are three things that we need to have to work with our communities. And I look like them, I talk like them, but I still have to practice this. Empathy, optimism, and experiment. Empathy. They don't know how to read or write Spanish. I have to have people with me to help them. Sometimes they don't even know what their needs are. How do you help people to recognize their needs? How do you say, okay, this is what, I'm good with time. This is what we're trying to do here. It's not gonna be one meeting. It's not gonna be one survey. It's gonna be several times. You're gonna have to go back and say, this is what we're trying to do. What is that you need? Optimism. I mean, you have to go with an open mind that you're gonna get this done, but you're gonna do it for the community, not for you. You are second. And experiments, we do it all the time. We say, okay, we got it. You know, the design team, the construction team, we got it. We have everything that we want. Well, throw them out the signs and show it to the community. And be ready, because they will say, yeah, you didn't get anything that I wanted. Be ready to be disappointed, be ready to, be criticized, because it's gonna happen and it's fine. We need to get used to those things if we really wanna do what we wanna do, serve the community. Here is just a picture of, some gatherings that we have with our residents and how we go over these designs. There are people that doesn't even pay attention, and you have to, approach them and say, hey, can we, what do you need to understand what are we saying? Here is Colonia Unidad, the first project that FHDC built, that it was not only for farm workers. It's 50 and 50. 50% of the project is for farm worker families, 50% are for just workforce low-income families. The design, as I told you about the murals, is extremely important for us. All these murals for us has a meaning. Woodburn was for years a gang activity city. It was horrible. It was not to be found in kids going to school and graduating. We got together, the police, the school district, social services, housing, 21 places today, nationwide, of graduation rate. That is in here. We want our kids to remember that. We want, when they are parents, we want them to see this. Colonia Unidad also was built during, I want to be politically correct, but I'm not gonna be. It was built during the Trump administration. we wanted to first put the name of Unidad because we believe unity, by the way, for those that don't speak Spanish, unity, community of unity. We wanted to tell the story during these years of oppression that there's people that wants to work together, that got together. And this is the representation. These hands made of kind of like a tree represents that. It represents a community that worked together to put this and to make sure that these units were, this project was a reality. We want to celebrate that. When I walk through that property, I remember that. A community of unity. We will never forget the fields because that is our community, from where the community comes today. And the butterflies are a huge representation of the transformation, especially in the Mexican community. So we honor that. Our kids work in some of these designs. They have the opportunity to give their advice to the artists, to the muralists. Our housing also is designed to the way that offers some security, because most of our clients come from small communities where they don't watch their kids. The kids go out and, you know, la vecina los mira, the neighbors watches, you know? So we needed to make sure that the kids can play in the center of all our properties, so they are secure. Everybody's watching them, and we watch them, by the way, all of us. We have a lot of designs that comes out of the community engagement that we do. These are some of them. We are very cautious about windows, because kids, I don't know, I don't care what culture is, kids are always active, and we need to have very secure windows. We do education because some of our families come from living in farm labor camps. They don't have toilets, they don't have heater, they don't have kitchens. We have to teach them everything. I was just talking to Nathan, and there were some kids coming new to the property, and sometimes you see them peeing in a tree. Like, okay, talk to mom, say, hey, mom, you need to help your kid. Now you have this, you know, they need to be trained to go and use the toilet. Those are the kinds of activities. Those are the kinds of designs that we work with architects and the construction team. But our construction and architects has to be open-minded as well. When we talk about equity and community engagement, our philosophy in FHDC is to engage people that give opportunities to people of colors in their companies. The first thing that I do when I get a business card for anyone is I go to the website and say, I wonder how many women are in the top positions in here. Because you know what? I want to see that. I want my kids in my communities to get there. Talking about equity, we practice it, like I say at the beginning of my presentation, everywhere. And an ongoing operation is the same. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Thank you for allowing me to share our story. And if you are not tired of me, please visit www.fhdc.org and learn more about our arts and all we do in FHDC. Thank you.
Wow. That was, I know, like, I don't know what to do. Everyone give another round of applause. That was awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, just say a few nice words about you again, like, because you did a both of us, but like you're really special. And we've worked together in different ways for a long time. So forgive me, y'all, but I just wanted to say thank you to you. You've been amazing to this field and to just this. I mean, like the vision, you have a mindset. And I actually want to start with a speaking to mindset. You have a mindset to what you do. You've always had that. Sometimes that challenges people because you're like, what are you talking about? It feels different because it's your mindset and you set that. You don't let other people knock you off it, right? And so that's why I thank you, because I've learned from you watching that. And so like I thought, like, I don't have a lot, honestly, to go into details because I'm sort of a pinch hitter, right? But I'm gonna have a few. So I thought, what could I do that would really be helpful? Because we want to get to some dialogue, I think, right? Nathan, you're gonna talk and then we want to. So first I want to share something that's not even my words, but I think they've resonated for me for a long time. I think it's really important for this whole discussion, which is about mindset. So I'm going to read a short thing. So Muhammad Yunus, he was a social entrepreneur, started Grameen Bank a long time ago in India. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006. Okay, so then this is from his speech on that. He says, "We get what we want or what we don't refuse. We accept the fact that we will always have poor people around us and that poverty is part of human destiny. That's precisely why we continue to have poor people around us." Then he goes on and says, "We wanted to go to the moon, so we went there. We achieve what we want to achieve. If we are not achieving something, it's because we've not put our minds to it. And what we want and how we get to it depends on our mindsets. It's extremely difficult to change mindsets once they are formed." I'll stop there. It's a long speech, but that always hit me. I was like, wow, yeah. Mindset is huge. And so what we're talking about here, I think there has to be a mindset behind the work. That's pretty much what your presentation was showing us, is like, you have to have a mindset, and mindsets are hard to change. And the mindset of this world we work in real estate and housing, is often counter to what we're trying to do. We have to fight against a lot of mindsets, right? So I think we just have to always support each other and call ourselves out on that, not as like a negative, like you got the wrong mindset. We're going to have the wrong mindset sometimes because the industry we work in, the world we're in, is constantly putting us back in that. So I just want to celebrate. We're all here. We all are striving to just constantly get that right mindset. So one way we've done that at Reach, because we've realized at Reach that we were often falling into the wrong mindset, this like growth and just building more housing because there needs to be more. Yes, it's true, but like it has to be rooted in people. And so, yeah, people aren't objects that we're trying to do something to. They are the community that is owning and living and in control, right? That's the mindset. So we're just the stewards trying to create something that folks are going to be able to do something in. So we have to have that. One way you hear that mindset talked about in the past or over the years has been asset-based community development. So if you don't know that term, you can look that up, right? But a lot of you do, you've read it. So asset-based community development mindset, where we're mobilizing to build on the strengths in the community, not fix a bunch of stuff, right? But we usually talk about what we're fixing or all the problems that we're going to solve. Well, yeah, but really it has to start with what's strong and what can we build on, and actually have people in the center of the discussion who are the community that we're building for, right? So that's what we had to work on at Reach. Like we were not, for a while, really developing with that at the heart of our mindset. So we had to do some intentional things. And if Alma Flores was here, she would be much better than me at telling you, because she's really led that change at Reach in our development teams and our development work. She's led that. And so I'm just channeling for you some of what she's been doing. I mean, I've supported, but like she's really been the leader on that. And, one example was like creating external project advisory committees, getting people from within the community that we were going to develop in, different organizations, different local residents, but basically having an external committee before we've even designed anything that comes together and has a few sessions to talk high level about what is the strength in this community? What can we build on? What would this really help make happen? And so we are, again, building a mindset of why we're doing it. that's not just rooted in the numbers of like, oh, there's a need here. Oh, there's a gap in housing. Yeah. We know that, but what's the building on the strength, And so that idea was really cool. So past couple of years, we've started, or 3 or 4 years, we've been occasionally having these external advisory committees at the beginning stage of a project, similar to some of the work you were talking about. And then that will lead into sometimes special focus groups, like during the Metro bond at the early stage of that. We ended up convening some focus groups around the implementation strategy of the Metro bond here to further inform us about, it was helping the Washington County also, but it was helping us think through like, what are the priorities that we should be paying attention to? And then that ends up morphing into an internal project advisory committee at REACH, but then where we have, then it gets more technical. Then you do have the architect, but we've laid enough groundwork so that even when the architect's coming into the room, we can set the tone with them, because it's so easy to fall into that trap of like, not that architects are the problem, but like architects too are part of a mindset. They're going to bring all kinds of past practice of what's been done here and there and there. That's fine. We want to build on what worked, but we want to have a mindset that's built on, rooted in the community. So we find it's really powerful when an architect comes in the room and there's already some criteria and some community strengths identified. It starts the conversation very differently when we start getting into the architect piece and the technical piece. So anyway, we're still trying to figure out the best ways. So I would love to hear more from others. Like, what have you done to start with that right mindset? And I see some partners out here that have worked with us on it. So you can talk about that too and go deeper than what I just said. Okay, let me just wrap up in a couple examples. Like, you already mentioned laundry rooms. It's so interesting how that always is huge. Like, these are the community spaces that matter. This is where you're doing laundry. You're there all the time. I was just at one of our communities where, yeah, it's like the laundry room and the way that it's arrayed and has windows to an outdoor area so kids can play. Like, that all came out of dialogue around like, we want to be able to like do laundry and do something. So figuring out how to align those, and it takes creativity to figure out what that is. So yeah, that was like an example of something that just comes out in this. Or multi-generational living came out a lot in the one in Washington County. Like, we need more multi-generational living. We want to live together. And then it's like, well, it's hard to do in a multifamily. But then it was like, well, what if we had studios and 1 bedrooms adjacent to 3 bedrooms and had some kind of preference for multi-generational household? Would that work? And, so we're trying to innovate new ways to array the housing, and then even array that with the operational process to see if we can't create this strength, because there was this strength in multi-generational living, right, that was identified. How do we build on that? So that's going to be hard, but now we're doing that and having that conversation because of this strength-based dialogue that was had, and this emerged. We didn't just see it in a book. It was like literally a constant theme. And then, yeah, kitchen configurations was another one that I've just loved because I like to cook. But just like, we ended up changing little things about how the kitchen was configured, but it was based on like having some options for how the kitchen could be semi-enclosed. There were religious and culturally specific sort of aspects with cooking and how the room is arrayed and how you sometimes want it not always visible in the same way. I mean, so there was really nuanced stuff about how the kitchen could be arrayed that just normally wouldn't be thought of, right? So, but it was all about the strength. It was about like the way we want to live, and so how do we do that different? Anyway, so I hope that helps. Just give a few examples of like where it led. And there's so many more. Everyone probably has ideas. So let me stop there. Nathan will round it up and then we'll get into questions, dialogue.
Thanks, Dan. I'll just very briefly touch on a few points that echo what Meg and Dan have already said. Again, I'm the director of Bienestar, just quickly so you know who we are. We're a community-based affordable housing organization rooted in Washington County. We have 12 multifamily properties in Washington County, a little over 500 units. We're building 263 more, which we're really excited about. So we're growing, and it's really exciting. Our history is very much similar to FHDC's in that our early history was almost entirely farm worker housing. We've been expanding in recent years, just as FHDC has, to serve other low-income households. but still the demographic in the western part of Washington County where we focus is heavily Latino. And so that's very much the core of our resident community. Just a few points from me that will sort of round out what Dan and Meg were talking about. When we talk about community engagement, those of you who've ever worked on funding proposals or looked at doing a development know that there's always an opportunity, whether you go deep and go real or kind of try to box check, right? And so I think what we're trying to speak to is don't box check, box checking is not what we want. We want to prioritize relationships and intentionality. And those are kind of two words that I think are important for me to think about when we talk about community engagement. The relationships, obviously, depending on who's doing the project and who's doing the development, the developer may not have those relationships. In the case of FHDC or Bienestar and sometimes Reach, we may already have local relationships in a community, but other developers may not. But you can reach out to local groups and really engage them in a serious way to try to that already have some of those local relationships. Those relationships are obviously key to trust. If there is a language, different languages spoken, that can be important. Connection and understanding the complexity of groups. I've seen community development process or community engagement processes, for example, that sort of hurry up and grab, let's just say 10 people from the Latino community, throw them in a room for an hour, and then sort of, okay, check, we've done that. And guess what? I mean, there's complexity in these communities, and just grabbing a few people, you probably won't capture the complexity of a group and the different needs they have across generations and different kinds of communities. And then intentionality. And, again, I don't know how many of you work in development as opposed to just working in other roles in your organizations, but we're always rushing, at least it feels that way. There's always another funding opportunity. There's always that one, oh, we got to go for that. And of course, that's important. You can't stop. You do have to work hard and run fast. But it is important to also, if you care about this, be intentional and step back and say, we do really want to talk to the people about the choices that we're going to make for them in a community that they're going to live in the future. And also being intentional about what you ask about. Obviously, we're not likely to hold a community forum and ask a group of community members, do you think we should go for a 4% tax credit or a 9% tax credit? Right? I mean, that's not meaningful engagement. So you want to make sure that you're engaging them on something that's meaningful to them and to their community. In the case of Bienestar, we have a number of community members. We have our residents in our existing properties. We have a resident leadership program called Promotores, which engages a person from each of our properties to be a leader. Many of our property management staff are themselves from the community, and especially the maintenance staff in our community, in most cases, are bilingual, bicultural, and they have a wealth of knowledge and information about how our properties operate, and that can inform future development. We have staff within the agency that also are part of the community, and then all sorts of community partners that you can engage. Recently, I'll just mention an example. If you were here last night, our project got a little award, which we're very pleased about. One of the things that happened in that project, which was Nueva Esperanza in Hillsborough, is early on we talked to the local school district about that. We knew the site the city was going to put out for RFP, and the school district told us something we didn't know, which was that there was a growing Somali community in the eastern part of Hillsborough, which is where this site is. That was actually a little bit of a surprise to us. We checked some of the numbers that were on the school district website about the elementary school in that area, and it was true. We saw that. So we asked them to connect us to somebody from that community, and they did. And we sort of went through a process to engage them, and a group called the Somali Empowerment Circle with a number of members in Beaverton actually joined the project advisory committee and became really important to a lot of the decisions we made. So that happened because we talked to the school district, right? Otherwise, we would never have known that. I could go on and on with different examples like that. I thought, though, Dan and Meg both mentioned a few examples, but I thought it might be interesting for some of you just hear some of the recent decisions that we've made that can sort of concretely show how the community engagement has influenced what we've done. So I'll just run through a list here. We've got these two big projects going, excuse me. So for example, in one of our projects, we decided to include an outdoor boot washing station because we identified that a number of the workers likely to live there worked in landscaping and other fields where they were likely to have pesticide on their shoes. And this was a common concern that they were sharing with us. When they came home, they didn't want to bring that into their home if they could wash their shoes or boots outdoors. Parking, this is always everyone's favorite topic in development. We had a site in one of our projects where we could have pressed for more units and less parking, and I know this is like always a controversy, we identified, so we kind of tried to thread the needle in the middle there. And we identified that, again, some of the future residents were likely to be working in landscaping. They had trucks, they had bigger vehicles, they would need bigger parking spaces, right? So again, we tried to find the balance between number of units we were building and the amount of parking we were building. Maybe a silly example, we knew that many of our residents were likely to have pets. Technically, they're not supposed to, but they do. And so we wanted to have a grass area for the pets to, do their business and hang out. But in engaging the Somali community, we realized that their feelings about pets was different than perhaps some other communities. And so we intentionally chose to put the pet relief area on a certain side of part of the site so that it wouldn't have to interact a lot with the residential community for people who felt that way. Kitchen design, which Dan mentioned, we started with the idea of an open kitchen design, and we heard feedback from our project advisory committee and the Somali Empowerment Circle that this was not actually always favored. And so we ended up going with the option of a door where you could open it, have an open kitchen out into the dining and living area, or close it if you wanted to and the person wanted some privacy. We also built a tiny little space, and sometimes the tiny things that matter, a tiny space in the kitchen, because we heard from several of the parents that they wanted to be able to work in the kitchen, but keep an eye on their younger kids. And so we created a little tiny area where kids can have essentially sit on a stool and do homework while mom or dad are cooking in the kitchen. So they're not off in the bedroom. So that was also one of our projects recently. We started with the assumption that we would not build 4-bedroom units. And Meg was teasing me about this earlier, but actually after talking to the community on this project, we decided to build 4 4-bedroom units. So we're building those. And we'll see how it leases up. So we haven't leased up yet, so TBD. But we have put on our website an early interest form for people to just, it's not even a lease up form. It's just like, are you potentially interested in being contacted in the future about this property? We're getting a lot of interest in the 4-bedroom so far. So we'll see. We hope it leases up. There are a number of other things I could speak to. I would say, ultimately, I think one of the most significant things about any project is the name that the project has and the identity that the name conveys to the residents. And so we have worked hard to engage the community, I think in a way similar to what Meg described, to name the project and give what is the meaning and the identity of the project. So we're choosing Spanish names, and they have some historical resonance for the community. I could go on, but I think you get the flavor of it. So with that, I think we have about 45 minutes or less if we decide to take less. So I think now we'd like to open up either for questions or frankly, just dialogue and conversation, or ideas from you all that or examples you've seen. So we do ask, and I guess I can run around with the mic or repeat the question. Oh, you can. Thanks, Teresa. So raise your hand and Teresa will bring the mic.
Hello, thank you all so much, first and foremost. I have 2 questions, if that's all right. One of them being, how do you strike the balance between truly being able to empower residents in making these key design decisions, while also striking the balance of cost constraints, funder requirements, and when we're getting in a funding application, you need to have the design at a certain point to be able to submit that. And that also has to be done in a quick turnaround amount of time, or in a quick turnaround. So that's one question. And the number 2 is how you all are working to actively combat burnout from engaging these communities who also have so much more going on in their lives that they can't always devote time for engagement. Thank you.
I'll try on the first one. I don't know, the burnout one, I'm not sure. It's true. Sometimes even in construction, you're like, oops, now what are we gonna do, right? We're in the middle of a project right now. We're changing the kind of transformer we're putting in because of shortages of transformers from PGE in the middle of construction, just as an example. I see some heads nodding, so maybe some of you are doing the same thing. But so yes, you have to make quick decisions. And so So I think the way that you try to combat that is you try to go in already knowing what your values are and already having done a lot of that communication. So when you're making those trade-offs, which you inevitably have to do, you're doing it in a way that's informed by that, which doesn't mean you're going to be able to do every single thing, right? But that's what I would say there. So.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think, again, who else in this room, please speak on it when you get the mic on burnout, because it's a big issue. I mean, one thing, is like when we did this external project advisory committee, it wasn't, yeah, we pitched it as like, it's for a particular project, but like, it could be for other projects too. So, try to look for ways to do input and facilitate it in a way so that it can be used. Maybe it's not forever because things keep changing, right? But maybe it can be used on multiple projects, or maybe even collaborate. I mean, like, I don't know, that's something we're collaborating some on development already. Maybe there's a way to also collaborate on that for multiple projects. Like, that's an idea. I don't think we've really figured out how to do that yet, but it's occurring to me. So I think it's a great question for all of us, again, mindset to think about, like what we're asking of people. Yeah, thank you.
Burnt out. What's that? I was just watching TikTok last night, and George Lopez was there, and he say, burnt out? What's that? And you just have one job and you're all the time tired? This was a person of color talking, obviously, to a white person. It's like, what's that? And I agree with you. I don't think we have a balance. I haven't found one. You can ask my staff is in here in the front line, and I think we are trying to balance that. We have implemented a series of new policies in the organization to balance that. We are all most of the time working from home now, as much as we can. But our commitment to the organization and to the communities is so big sometimes that I have to pretty much tell them you have to take vacation. Just last week we did that. So I don't have an answer for that. I do swim a lot, and do meditation, but I hope some of you uses that too. In regards to, making decisions, I will agree with Nathan. You have your basics. You know where your mission is, you know what your beliefs are, you know your community, hopefully. Not entirely. I don't think there is a perfect knowledge of what the community would want, and just start trading. Put your wish list out there and say, okay, how much can we do? And then start taking things that are not as important for the community and keep those that represent your community.
Part of that was addressing burnout in the community. We actually go out into the communities. We make sure that we are addressing them at their locations. We're not expecting them to come to us. We spend Saturdays and Sundays standing outside markets, handing out flyers. It's building the trust in us so that they'll give us their time. It's not just well, we're going to be here at this time and we expect you to come. It really is developing those relationships within the community, and then the community organizers rally their people, their church members, their parents to come and participate in that.
And that's Carmen from FHDC.
I have another question over here.
Hi. Thank you for sharing the story about the kitchen, saying like you love cooking and everything. For starters, I would love to know what you like to cook. I like to cook too in the Food Network channel, so I'm all about that. And before you answer that, I'm just curious about on each property, how much are the units running for, especially if we're going to add on possibly a 4-bedroom apartment that can range, depending in the area, pretty high. And maybe went over this and I kind of like missed it or whatever, but I'm pretty curious about that.
Were you asking specifically about like what would a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom rent for? Yeah. Right. Right. Um, don't hold me to this. I'll give you some round numbers that are generally in the ballpark. And of course, we're working on projects that are going to open in about a year, so things may change a little by then. But first of all, just know that all of us are building regulated affordable housing, meaning that the rents that we charge are regulated by our dear friends at OHCS and elsewhere. And so we're not setting the rents on our own. We're accepting money to build, and with that money, we're accepting lower rents. Um, Still not as low as we would like sometimes. And so this is really general. And I can just give you like 4-bedroom in our properties now. One prop was a little over $1,000 a month, right? So look for a 4-bedroom unit in the market, right? Won't be $1,000 or even close. And then sort of it goes down from there. Now, some of our newer projects, the rents are going to be a little higher at the starting point. And there's all sorts of reasons for it that I won't go into, having to do with the way the regulations work.
Similar situation at FHDC. We also have, and you too, Nathan, Bienestar also have USDA properties, which have rental assistance. So even though the rents might be a little higher, that family, if they're qualified, might pay 0 rent. Or, we might have to even pay them to pay the electricity. So it all depends on, but again, we are regulated by our friends, Oregon Housing Community Service, and other restrictions. So we have a cap for our rents. Sure, we all would hope that everybody can pay those rent, but it's still a struggle for our families.
Yeah, and then I think for us similar kind of rents. I mean, sometimes then we also look for extra funding sources like Housing Trust Fund, which allows you to do some of the apartments at a lower rent. So like right now, like a Housing Trust Fund might be, I think, around in the 500 to maybe up to like 900 for a 4-bedroom, but like, so it's slightly lower range. It's still going to be what it is. We look for ways to add in 30% median rents, which might be slightly lower than that also than what I just said. So we look for ways to mix that funding to help with the rent side. But then on the design side, I think a lot of what we're talking about is amenities that we're going to do anyway, but it's about how we do it. So it's not always about adding lots of extra amenities, but it's about the how we do the ones that are there anyway and doing them different and better and more aligned. So that doesn't have to add a ton of cost. And that's good if we're thoughtful about it, right? But it can, but I mean, it doesn't have to. So, but it's a challenge. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the difficulty of this work, right? Is how do we overcome the resource issues, because the funding in the United States and the way it flows, it kind of funds this particular, it's all fundamentally built on this thing where there still has to be debt service and all these things, right? Financially, and the tax credit serviced and all that. So, it kind of hems us in. And I think we need new models. I mean, when it's rent subsidy, right? We need more vouchers. How about that, right? Like if we had way more vouchers in this country, would be another conversation, right? But right now we know that's so hard to get, right? So I guess, yeah, we need some big system change to address the issue.
I wonder if we can see if there's any comments on chat. Is that? Nothing? Okay.
Just a general comment first, from participating in like committees and when there's focus groups with organizations, government organizations like Metro or nonprofits or housing development, I think stipends are a good way to encourage community members to, they're giving their time that they could spend working or doing other valuable things. So offering stipends and holding meetings when the community members can meet, which you guys mentioned, you guys meet on weekends and stuff. So I appreciate that. But my question is, what are you guys doing with your organizations to ensure that your affordable housing stays affordable permanently? So I know like low income housing tax credits expire, you can reapply, but it's like a max, like 30 years, correct? Or something around there. So like, what do you guys do? I know community land trust is a method that people use, but what does your organizations do to ensure that those properties are going to remain affordable?
That. Well, a lot of times we'll commit to way longer than 30, even though that might be what it's the tax credit, but then some local governments are requiring 60 or 90, so that's good. So, local governments play a role in setting a tone for like, hey, this needs to be long range. And then also I think this is an argument for why community-based nonprofit organizations doing this work are important, because we all have boards and missions that are like volunteer stakeholders, community stakeholders. So you're not going to, it's going to be much less frequent that you're going to see a community board of people who care about this mission saying, oh, we should just let it go and not be affordable anymore. Right. So I think our organizations are committed and always figuring it out. We have examples, all of us, of buildings that we've had to figure out how to preserve and stay affordable long run, but we lean into that work. I think all the community-based nonprofits try to lean into that work. So that's an argument for that, because there are a lot of other kinds of development entities that do affordable housing that may not be as motivated when that gets hard, right? So that's maybe my soapbox.
I think, I agree, Dan, but we are also, sometimes we are presented with opportunities that there are some housing projects that are going out to market. And we get a call sometimes from Oregon Housing Community Service saying, hey, you wanna check this? And sometimes, believe me, they are not the best projects, but our commitment, our mission, call us to act on it. In FHDC, we have 2 properties that were going out of service for affordable housing back in 2009, and we took them, even though there are small projects, 24 units, and we all in here know that 24 units don't pencil out. Financially, they are very difficult, but they were in areas and serving communities that we were interested in serving and providing services. So like Dan says, sometimes it's not just the properties that we have that we are attentive to sustain over the years, but also, we find opportunities to do more.
Yeah, I agree with him. It might be worth mentioning that all 3 of the organizations represented here are CHODOs, which stands for Community Housing Development Organization, and Dan was hinting at that. That means that 1/3 of our boards, at least, need to be themselves low income or from low income communities, right? So, as Dan was saying, and that they have a strong voice, right? I mean, there are also just the reality is there's a lot of regulations. I mean, the reality is even if one of us somehow wanted to convert to a for-profit mindset tomorrow, which it's not going to happen, but hypothetically, we commit to these long-term regulations, and it's almost always the case. You say 60 years, right, Dan? You mentioned no property is going to go 60 years without being refinanced. It's just not. And so when you get 20 years down, you're going to refinance. Well, you're still within the affordability regulation period, so you're going to refinance with more regulated money, right? So you're really not ever going to be able, probably, even if you wanted to get out of it, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not saying there's an interesting thing. I don't know if you were thinking about this. One thing that has happened to Bienestar, and I think has happened to FHDC, and I'm curious at Reach. We have some projects, USDA, which is U.S. Department of Agriculture, Rural Development. They have, if you achieve 80% of area median income, okay, which is still less than 100%, right? You're still under the median income. They sort of think, okay, then you don't need subsidized housing anymore, right? So we've had situations in some of our markets. Forest Grove is a community we're part of, where the rents are pretty high. So if you're suddenly in a household that's 81% of area median income, okay, that doesn't mean you can actually just go out and rent a similar apartment somewhere else in Forest Grove that you would have at Bienestar. But our regulations actually ask, we have to say, hey, when your lease is up, you're going to have to move out, which is really unfortunate. And it has caused us occasionally, we haven't done it, but it has occasionally caused us to think maybe we should own 12 unregulated units or something. So if somebody's just over 80%, they still have an option in the market without just getting thrown literally just a wide open market where they're probably going to have their rents double or something. But anyway, I don't know if you were thinking of that part of the question.
Hi. We also do design, resident-led design, which I think is so important. So commend you all for doing that. I think every affordable housing agency should be doing that. My question is, sometimes the feedback we get for a community is a bigger shift than we can put in place for that community. So then we say we'll commit to that for the next community, but we know affordable housing development is really slow. And so then that commitment goes out a couple of years. How do you stay engaged with those residents to continue to strengthen that trust to say it is coming? It's just going to be a long time before you can see that your feedback realized in a community.
I mean, it's a good question, and it is a challenge, and it is sometimes hard to believe how long it can take. I don't know. I don't think there's a one size fits all. We also had a project advisory committee on one of our projects, and the way we've sort of addressed what you talked about is we keep talking to them. We tell them what stage we're at. Okay, now we're pouring the cement. That's happening now. Now we're looking for new transformers because PG told us the transformer we want isn't available. So we're trying to bring them along so they know. It can be very challenging when you're working with community. I've had community members, give me advice that just is not practical, right? Like, and if I'm not criticizing, it's just, they'll say, well, why don't you do this? Or why are you spending so much on it? And I'm like, well, it's just very hard to explain. So, I do think that for organizations that have a lot of trust, sometimes you can carry a little of that and be like, okay, I know maybe you think we should be building it for half of what we're actually spending to build it, but I'm telling you, we're trying to build it as cheaply as possible. And if they trust us, that helps.
Not an answer for that. Seriously, I think in my presentation, I put that trust is an ongoing thing. I agree with Nathan. We have to just keep the community informed of what's going on, what are the challenges that we are having, how can we do better. We ask for advice. We try to engage them as much as we can and as much as money allows. That's a huge situation right now. But yeah, I don't think I have an straight answer to your question. I hope that helps a little bit. Dan?
Same here. These are great questions. Anyone else, please speak up on it. I think it's about like setting the expectations up front too of, this is a trade-off discussion. We can't do everything, but we are hunting for those things we surely can do. And some things will be later, some things will be now, and trying to find that mix, but it's like every community outreach is so much creativity to create a community outreach process that is centered in people, that is realistic also, and that gives people a sense of progress at the same time. So that's the work. That's like the creativity that's needed to do it, for sure. And I can't say we always get it right, but asking that question is it. You're right on.
I just wanted to address the question. I think, Dan, you hit it well. I think clear expectations are extremely important. And when people bring these up, you might say, well, we've got a 50% chance of this happening, or this will be happening 2 years from now. I think the biggest thing that breaks trust is people not having clear expectations and communication going back and forth. You think that they want one thing and they think you want something else. And then but it's also the constant communication, is checking back in on a regular basis, giving them updates. Oh, we thought this was going to happen, and let them know. And then that way, I think people can be part of the solution, actually. So we found that works.
Is there anyone here from Housing Oregon? Because I think this gentleman brought up a really good point about paying people for their time, right, from focus groups. But there's a lot of tricky financial implications to that, right? You don't want to have give someone a payment that then is taxable income on their W-2. And I would love to see Housing Oregon come out with recommendations for the best way to pay community members stipends so that it doesn't impact their taxes.
And also that passes most of your audit.
Yeah.
I heard someone say gift
Yeah,
cards.
I'll
like,
say
you get a lot
that,
of
yeah.
gift cards, and some of your auditors may get credit.
Yep.
So Ty, Oregon Housing. So that is a great question. I will pass. Yeah, we can pass that along to the compliance folks, and we can add that to the checklist of things they need to look at. But no, it's a good question.
You're Jackie, aren't you? From, yes, I thought I recognized you. Yeah, from so the stipends, just a quick anecdote. We've had people in programs that are getting a stipend, not exactly for this, but for similar kinds of work in the community, our promotoras. And then they get a really unpleasant surprise at tax time. And then they say, I don't want to do it anymore. And they quit the program, even though we're giving, it is a net benefit economically to them. But psychologically, and I'm sure you can all relate to this, is like when you suddenly get to tax time and you're like, wait, I owe $1,000. Like, wait, what? It can feel like a punishment or a negative thing. So we've had people quit. Say, I'm not doing it again. Sorry. We're trying to pay them a stipend and they don't want it. So I don't know. I know that doesn't help. That makes it worse, but it's happened.
I was going to ask something that's maybe related to this about what are the hard won lessons from community engagement? And, that sounds like one of them. Anything else that maybe you didn't get right the first time that you had to refine in your process?
I have a good one, I think. Some of our families do childcare services to their kids, the community kids. And we built 2 projects with a space for a childcare. And it's not working as we wanted to. And exactly because of the same situation. Families started getting more money and suddenly they are out of the income limits and they have to move out. Also, the regulations in childcare, as some of you know, are high. And there are not really people out there training these providers, especially in Spanish. So sometimes we can list those units to families that are doing childcare services. So we have these spaces that we can use, and they are using it for other purposes. Ty, you're not listening to this. Don't tell the compliance people. But it is reality. We want to help the families, but at the same time, I guess those are the challenges. They ask for it. They say we do this as we get this as a part of our income, and we want to do it right. So we build these units for this. And as of today, I don't think I have seen that working entirely as we envision it.
Yeah, I think of a good one. I mean, yeah, I think of a good concrete one. This is where Alma would be better because she's been in it for the last couple years on this outreach piece. But no, I think for us, it's there's a lot of hard one around like where we haven't done a lot of outreach or where it wasn't effective, and just like seeing the results, just like of communities where they just don't work well from a community perspective, where it could be things around the community space and how it's set up and how things that you thought were going to be used aren't, and the things that people want to use aren't there, and and you just get the feedback, and then like this was a miss, So there's all those are that's like where you feel it every day, it's where you have communities and you just know, oh, okay, this could have been different, Yeah, there's a lot of those for us.
I've never made a mistake, but my predecessors have. No. The example I was going to give was, I'm joking, of course, a lot of mistakes, but one of our properties envisioned a community garden, and there was enough land and it just worked out that there could be, so I think there was a very idyllic vision of how that would work, and it did not work. And what happened was it required much more oversight from Bienestar than we were able to provide. We had people, we would get giant water bills at the property, but what happened? And somebody just like left the water on all night. We had people stealing tomatoes from each other. We had, yeah, right. On and on. And so we actually had to shut down the community garden, which was very sad. So, I'm not saying it was a bad vision. It was a good vision. However, so it's a rectifiable mistake. It happens to be in a community where Adelante Mujeres works. Adelante Mujeres is an organization in Washington County that has an ag training program, and they actually wanted a community garden. So we're working with them to get a lease so that they will manage the community garden for us and also make it available to other folks in the community. But it's been sitting there for like 4 years, just growing weeds, this giant community garden. It's really sad, but it was causing all sorts of trouble. So. We are 18 minutes from being done with the conference. I don't object to us ending 18 minutes early, but we're here. So have any other questions, comments, feedback? All right. We're here. If you want to come up, talk to us separately. Well, otherwise, it was good seeing everyone. Hope we do it again next year. Hopefully there's not another pandemic and we can get together every year. Yes.